Yo, what's up guys, it's NLW here, back again with another video. Today, an action figure career retrospective on the evolution of the Fiend Bray Wyatt. This was suggested by WEW Champion over on Patreon. If you'd like to request your very own figure setup for me to make, head over to Patreon. The link is in the description. Now, Bray Wyatt is one of my favourite characters in wrestling today. What he's doing now with Alexa Bliss, I think is great character work. I love the Firefly Funhouse. I also loved when he debuted. I think Bray Wyatt himself is a very talented individual. Even though maybe the stuff that's written for him sometimes isn't great, Bray Wyatt manages to pull it off more often than not. And it all started in NXT. Bray Wyatt, formerly Husky Harris in the Nexus, he came back to NXT, back to FCW, and formed a trio with Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. Together, they were known as the Wyatt Family. The tag titles were on the Wyatt Family. They dominated NXT, and then they came to the main roster where they made an immediate impact, targeting the Big Red Machine, Kane. This would lead to a Ring of Fire match at SummerSlam, and thus Kane was the first victim of the Wyatt family. The Wyatts would continue to terrorize the roster in the coming months, particularly Kofi Kingston, CM Punk, and Daniel Bryan. Bryan lost a 3-on-1 handicap match at TLC and was then forced to join the Wyatt family. Daniel Bryan seemed to be brainwashed by the Wyatts, and this looked like it was going somewhere. However, fans turned on it quickly as they wanted Daniel Bryan in the main event scene as a superface, and who can forget the cage match between the Usos and the Wyatt family, I believe, and then Bryan at the end turning on Bray Wyatt, siding with the fans once again. Had a great match at the Royal Rumble where Wyatt ultimately won. At this point, he was pretty much undefeated until he met his name is John Cena. At WrestleMania 30, John Cena arguably buried Bray Wyatt. Who knows, but it would have been interesting to see Cena in the Wyatt family rather than Daniel Bryan. Of course, this is a storyline we'd see later on, but I'll get to that in a moment. So Cena has a feud with Wyatt. Wyatt doesn't come out of the other side of it looking great, is worse than he went in, has a couple of feuds with Jericho and Dean Ambrose, but it wasn't really going anywhere. Then he challenged The Undertaker to a match at WrestleMania. Finally, this was Wyatt's big break. Of course, he lost at WrestleMania. However, the match, despite the fact that I think both men, or at least Wyatt, was working with an injury, it was good for what it was. And I think being in there with a legend like The Undertaker instantly puts you on another level, even if you lose. So Wyatt may have lost to Undertaker, but kind of middled around the mid-card for a bit until he started a feud with Roman Reigns, and this is where Braun Strowman joined the group shortly before, I believe it was Night of Champions. Braun Strowman joining the Wyatt family and causing chaos for all involved. He was this big, silent monster, and Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt, they go on to have a good Hell in a Cell match. Roman, of course, comes out the victor. And then Bray Wyatt, he doesn't really do a lot. He had kind of a mini feud with Brock Lesnar that didn't really go anywhere. He gets injured, comes back again, doesn't really do a lot. They feud with the New Day for a bit, but it seems like Wyatt is down the pecking order quite a lot until the start of the live era of SmackDown in 2016. The brand split really rejuvenated the career of Bray Wyatt, in my opinion. Started a feud with Randy Orton. Orton ended up joining the Wyatt family, and they won the Tag Team Championships in quite a shocking upset. And this is why I loved SmackDown in 2016. The stories being told were absolutely fantastic. The Survivor Series match where Randy Orton sacrificed himself so that Wyatt could win was top-notch storytelling. Orton and Bray would lose the tag straps, and then Orton would face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, and that's where the feud kind of took a downturn. Bray Wyatt, though, he won the WWE Championship inside the Elimination Chamber, and it was good to see him finally win the big one, although this was short-lived as he would succumb to Randy Orton and an RKO at WrestleMania for Orton to become the new WWE Champion. After this, Bray gets moved to Raw, doesn't really do a lot of note, is still doing the same stuff he was doing years before, and it's getting kind of stale at this point. He does enter into a good feud with the Demon, Finn Balor, had a decent match at SummerSlam, but then things took a turn for the worse. Bray Wyatt started dressing as a Sister Abigail, I think it was, and Finn Balor was a Pumpkin King or whatever was going on, and that feud took a massive downward spiral. Luckily, they stopped it before it could go too far. And after this, Wyatt had an Ultimate Deletion match with Matt Hardy, went into a feud with Broken Matt Hardy, which ended up with them becoming a tag team. Pretty good tag team as well, shortly after WrestleMania. So they're the tag team champions, and the Eater of Worlds, you know, they're pretty good. And I think around the end of 2018, Wyatt gets down with an injury, so he's off TV for a very long time. And that is where we come in to today. Vignettes start to air, we see that Wyatt is coming back, perhaps, but it is completely different to what anyone expected. He is now happy-go-lucky Firefly Funhouse presenter Bray Wyatt. He's got his little puppets, Huskus the Pig Boy, Rambling Rabbit, Abby the Witch, all of those guys. And the vignettes were quite strange, but also quite entertaining at the same time. I don't think a lot of people knew what to make of it, to be honest. And then things took a very dark turn very quickly, because it was just a way for him to contain his evil side. And that is where the Fiend was born. The Fiend, this evil side of Bray Wyatt, where he has harnessed the hurt compared to the Firefly Funhouse's healing side, the good side of Wyatt. And then Wyatt enters into a feud with Finn Balor for SummerSlam, and the Fiend absolutely decimates Finn, sends him back into NXT, and the Fiend is immediately cemented as one of the best things in the WWE at the time. And unfortunately, this is where they kind of squandered the momentum that he had. Rather than put him in another feud, they elevated him to the main event immediately against Seth Rollins, and who can forget the infamous Hell in a Cell match, where it ended because Seth Rollins hit Wyatt in the face with a small hammer. What is going on? A terrible ending. The fans crapped all over it. It was awful, and it stunted the momentum of the Fiend big time. Even though Seth was looking like a poor babyface in this feud, you could have saved a little bit of momentum for the Fiend by having him win the title at Hell in a Cell. But no, instead, both men come out worse on the other side. The Fiend did win the Universal title at Saudi Arabia, but by that point, it was too little too late. They rehab him a bit with some matches against The Miz, which weren't that great, and then a feud against Daniel Bryan, which, to its credit, was actually quite good. Some of the best matches that The Fiend has had since he's been back were against Daniel Bryan, and this is where things take another turn for the worse. Saudi Arabia Super Showdown, Goldberg. That's it. Goldberg spears him, jackhammers him, and wins. Apparently, he politicked his way into winning the championship here, which, it doesn't surprise me. I understand he wants to keep this public perception of himself to his younger fans, and I completely understand that, but this certainly hurt the Fiend a lot, losing to Goldberg. At least he rebounded slightly in a wacky and weird Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena. I'm of two minds about this. I liked the creativity of it, and I thought it was very strange, and in a good way, kind of unique to what was going on at the time, but at the same time, it didn't really make a lot of sense, and it seemed like there were just all these ideas that were thrown at the wall, and they were trying to see what stuck. And, you know, it was just a lot of random nonsense in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. I'm not sure what you guys thought of it either. And all things considered, I don't think The Fiend has had a very good 2020, because he entered into a feud with Braun Strowman where Firefly Funhouse Bray lost at Money in the Bank. Then they had the Swamp Fight, which was a bit hokey and nonsensical. Then they had a match at SummerSlam, which was fine. I liked it. But Roman Reigns comes back at the end, steals the thunder, and it's more about Roman Reigns than it is The Fiend. Even though The Fiend took the Universal title from Braun Strowman, it was getting good towards the end, but nah, it's in hindsight not a great rivalry. What I will say is adding Alexa Bliss to his entourage has really rejuvenated The Fiend in my opinion. It's given him an extra layer, an extra character in the Funhouse, something that you can work into women's feuds as well as men's feuds. And as of right now on Raw, or at least the time I'm recording this video, he's feuding in the WWE title picture. Who knows, maybe by the time this video goes out, he's WWE champion, I don't know. But The Fiend, I feel like he's gone on an upward trajectory now after being right at the bottom against Seth Rollins and Goldberg. At least now it seems the character is on its way up rather than in its way back down. But regardless, I still think it's a unique character. I enjoy Bray Wyatt's work, even if a lot of people don't. It's such a cool and unique concept. I think we need more characters in wrestling like The Fiend. So that is it for this career retrospective. Thank you once again to WEW Champion over on Patreon for requesting this one. If you'd like to request your own action figure setup for me to make, or even your own match for me to make, head over to my Patreon. The link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, and if you're not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button as we're trying to edge closer to 30,000 subs, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Also comment down below, what's your favourite memory of The Fiend Bray Wyatt? What's your favourite match or moment of his? I hope you enjoyed this look at The Fiend, and I'll catch you guys later.